Good morning, everyone. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jeremy Clifford, and I'm here this morning to talk to you about Community Service Day. Yes. Students who give up a Friday evening to go and volunteer at the soup kitchen. We've got kids who give up a week of spring break or a week of summer vacation to go to the Dominican Republic and work at an orphanage, go to Guatemala and build housing. So despite all the limitations on our schedule, we still manage to go out and find ways to perform service. But during the school year in particular, it is very challenging for us to find time to squeeze in with academics, athletics, clubs, college admissions, all these other responsibilities. It's difficult to find time to set aside for community service. And the beauty of Community Service Day is that we take one day during the year where we drop academics, we hold off on the athletics, and we put other things aside, and we all gather as a community to perform service out in the local areas. And in the past, I've spoken to you about how service affects you, the volunteers, the people providing the service, and what we get out of it. And I thought what I would do this year is actually turn that around a little bit and look at the other side of how service affects our partner organizations, the people we work with in the community, and what they gain from service and what they gain from volunteerism in the community in their efforts to further their own organizational missions. So what I'd like to do this morning is actually invite Mr. Alex Thompson up to the stage. Mr. Thompson works as a land manager over at Flanders Nature Center. Many of you have been there on past volunteer days. We've also started going to Flanders in the springtime for Senior Community Service Day. They're a long-standing service partner of the school, and I thought it'd be interesting for you to hear from an outside organization's perspective of what Community Service Day and volunteerism in general means for them. So I'm going to invite Mr. Thompson up onto the stage. He's going to speak with you for a few moments, and then I'll close the meeting with just a few final logistical details about Service Day. So can we please give a warm Taft welcome to Mr. Alex Thompson.
Good morning, everybody. I learned years ago when you're a guest at a program like this, never run up on stage because you tend to trip, and that sets the tone. At any rate, I'm here to chat just a little bit about the Volunteer Day, what it means to Flanders, what it may mean to you folks, and a few other things. I've been involved with the Taft Volunteer Day at Flanders Nature Center for several years now. And when looking at Taft, I thought it was interesting that your school motto is not to be served, but to serve. And looking at your website, I picked up the other day that your founder of the school, Horace Taft, said, "A great advantage of boarding school is that it gives opportunities for students to get out of themselves. They must work for others." And I think that's really a good thing that was said back in the 1800s. And I think it's also interesting that there's a whole section of the Taft website right there between arts and academics that is all about the concept of volunteerism and how important it is to your future success. Now, my background, I've lived in Woodbury for a couple of years, since 1957, I think. And, yeah, I'm an old guy, I know. And I attended schools in Woodbury, and then I went to McTurnan School, one of the predecessors of Chase Collegiate. And from there I went on to Berkshire. Now, be nice. And had a good time there, learned a lot. And from there it was up to UConn. And I knew that at that point I wanted a career in something in the ag sciences. Worked as a dairy farm as a kid, loved that a lot. And when I was in the ag engineering program at UConn, my surveying instructor suggested I get certified to teach ag at the high school level, to which I asked him if he was crazy. And, well, I did get certified, and I did teach right at Nonawag High School for 30 years, and I enjoyed every minute of it. And out of those 18 years, I was director of the program out of those 30 years, I was director for 18. And I still go back to help my successor or my replacement, who happens to be a former student of mine. So that's kind of fun there. The one thing I did towards the end of my teaching career is I recognized that a lot of our students were doing volunteer work on their own. We have a work experience requirement in the ag program at Nonawag, but I found out that many of our students were involved with volunteer projects of their own. So I did a survey. It was all self-identified. It was up to students to take a form, fill it out, tell me what they did for volunteer service, and yes, I did some follow-up verification calls. And as it turned out, about 50% of the enrollment in the ag program were involved in some type of volunteer program or more. Students were on fire departments. In fact, we had quite a few kids from the Watertown area that served in the Watertown Volunteer Fire Department. Ambulance associations, animal shelters, Special Olympics, YMCA, YWCA instructors, Lions Club events. A lot of kids were involved as school tutors, nursing home outreach, and the list went on and on. And I thought that was tremendous. And I was very proud of that. And it was very surprising to me, but in a very good way. Now, Taft has had a very long relationship with Flanders. Mr. Clifford mentioned that. I think this is the 18th year he mentioned. And what we have done in my very short tenure with Flanders is that I know that we have the fall day, which has worked out tremendously well, and then the senior day also, as long as we don't get rained out the way we did last year. But it's really been a fun day for me, very productive. And I know that in the years past, we've done trail maintenance, firewood production, we've done fence building, removal of invasives. A couple of years ago, a bunch of kids got their first lesson in tractor driving. So it's a little bit of everything that people have done at Flanders when they come over from Taft. Flanders Nature Center and Land Trust, and some of you may be familiar with that organization, that was established in 1963 by a local farmer and artist by the name of Natalie Van Vleck. She had a 200-acre farm in Woodbury, raised turkeys, raised sheep, award-winning sheep, Hampshire breed sheep that won awards nationally. She was an artist in the 30s, up until the late 30s, and she decided that she wanted to make sure her farm would never be developed and would remain in its natural state. So she established Flanders Nature Center in 1963, and since then Flanders has provided educational programs for all levels, for all ages of folks. Lots of summer programs there evolve around kids this tall. We have a full operating farm there. Kids do farm chores. Kids learn about nature and all the aspects of a responsible activities within nature. We have a maple syrup program. Education programs are based out of our trail house. We have an art studio that's undergoing renovations. And then the other aspect of that is the land trust. Now, Flanders Nature Center and Land Trust owns or manages more than 2,000 acres in the Woodbury, Bethlehem, Middlebury, Watertown area. And in order to maintain that holding, we rely extensively on volunteers. We rely on volunteers to do the education programs in the summer. A lot of my former students are educators in this young children's program. So again, Flanders really has evolved around the concept of volunteerism, and that's kind of where this little conversation is going. Some of you may have seen the entry in the kiosk on Route 64 in Middlebury. That's the Whittemore Sanctuary. Some of you may have been out to the main campus, the Van Vleck Sanctuary on Flanders Road in Woodbury. And that's kind of what Flanders is all about. And lots of opportunities there for families, for young folks, and for old folks too. And obviously we appreciate your involvement. We also recognize that many of you will be traveling to about 20 other sites on Monday. And right now, Monday sounds like a good weather day, which is a good thing. And I know that many of you folks will be involved in all sorts of other volunteer activities, and that's just great. And that's kind of the finale of the volunteerism talk. Something else, though, I do want to mention is that the good thing about private education is that staff can be granted what they call sabbaticals, kind of like a sabbatical, monticle, twosical, wednesdacle, and so on. But at any rate, it's a chance for staff to take a year off, grow academically, personally, do some reflection, recharge the batteries, so to speak. And we didn't have that advantage in public education. But at any rate, a couple of years ago, Mr. McCabe was on sabbatical leave from Taft, and he decided to spend some of his time over at Flanders Nature Center. And again, that was volunteerism. And I was just coming on board at that time, and I worked quite a bit with Mr. McCabe. And oh my gosh, he was out there cutting brush, hauling brush, burning brush, got sick and tired of brush. He got his lessons in tractor driving, moving firewood around. I never forget one day that the big pond up there, the big marsh area, had a blockage in the outlet for the pond due to beaver activity. And in this case, beavers had packed the outlet full. They had gotten past the first line of defense, and way down deep, about 6 feet down in a concrete basin, was packed with mud, twigs, multiflora rose, and gosh knows what else there was there. And when Mr. McCabe and I took off the top of the dam outlet, he volunteered to go down in there, and I was handing him a 5-gallon pail. He was filling it up. I'd dump it out, and this was all as pond water is seeping through our little makeshift dam. And so he got totally soaked. And the idea of 6 feet down, looking up to the sky with water coming in is not exactly my idea of a vacation. But at any rate, I'd like Mr. McCabe to come up here. Mr. McCabe. Now, what are you going to do? And let's see, the bucket of water is going to come down right about there. But at any rate, I just want your fellow staff and your students to recognize the time that you spent at Flanders was volunteer. It was wonderfully appreciated, and we hope that what you did there can be transferred to the classroom. And you folks here, you have a wonderful instructor here. And thank you very much. In fact, Mr. McCabe was out at Flanders yesterday. We did a little drive around looking at different spots where we'll have some of you folks working on Monday. So his involvement with Flanders continues. And a number of years ago, Mr. McCabe started off, I believe, in the maple syrup program. Now, let me just look at the last of my notes that I find are becoming more and more difficult to read in the dim light here. I think I've covered everything, but that's the disadvantage of advancing ages. Things aren't quite as bright as they used to be. But at any rate, thank you very much. You've been a wonderful audience. And back to Mr. Clifford. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. So just in closing, I wanted to briefly review the logistics for Monday. For those of you who have not had Community Service Day with us before, over the weekend, Saturday night, Sunday morning, I'm probably watching the play on Saturday night, so it might be Sunday morning, you will see in news a description for each student broken out in alphabetical order of what your marching orders are going to be for the day. So you'll find that information out most likely Sunday morning. They'll give you instructions on where to meet up with your team and what you're going to be doing for the day. There are a few groups that need to know information ahead of time and will contact you, like if you need a permission slip assigned in advance, things of that nature. But otherwise, you will find out everything you need to know on Sunday morning. Okay? Thank you very much. Have a great rest of your day.